We're so glad that you're here joining us for the Rossmoor Interfaith Council's Big Questions Forum with Gloria Sunshine and Sara Blackstock as a part of the NAIN August Interfaith gatherings. Let's first hear from the host.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the 6th Annual Interfaith Awareness Week. My name is Reverend Dr. Steve Albert, and I'm the director of the World Interfaith Network. Interfaith Awareness Week is a yearly, week-long celebration begun by the Poway Interfaith team in Poway, California. In 2017, Point, as it's known, has members throughout San Diego County, and we hosted a 5-day NAIN Connect conference in the San Diego area. We held it at the University of California in San Diego, and it attracted over 250 people from 20 different faiths. 77 speakers and presenters provided workshops, lectures, discussions, morning meditations, activities, which included bus trips to historic faith locations, concert in the park, and lots of food. While planning the conference, we contacted the mayors of the cities throughout San Diego County about creating that second week in August during the conference as Interfaith Awareness Week, and to do it in their city. And believe it or not, 14 city mayors and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors proclaimed Interfaith Awareness Week as a time in which we honor and respect all faiths, cultures, creeds, and races, and seek to learn from those who believe equal spiritual opportunity and human rights belong to all people. 1 year later, in 2018, the governor of the state of California proclaimed Interfaith Awareness Week as an annual state celebration. And then 1 year after that, in 2019, the United Religions Initiative asked if they could celebrate the second week in August with us. And their members are located in over 107 countries. Wow, so what we will be celebrating and participating in this coming week will truly be a global celebration. Well, that's the history of Interfaith Awareness Week. Now we need to move forward into this week's activities and introduce you to the over 40 interfaith groups, which will be presenting prayers, music, dance, speaker panels, dialogues, and discussions from their area of the world. I know that you'll enjoy meeting new friends from different faith and cultural backgrounds and appreciate the mutual respect they all have for one another as we unite our interfaith partners globally. And each noontime, Monday through Friday, don't miss the 1-hour global talk zone. The talk zones is where you can meet and interact with interfaith people from all over the world and introduce the new programs that you're working on. Perhaps you'll learn new practices to help you develop the final product. You may even be invited to collaborate on a virtual event and even be on a panel elsewhere in the world. By joining forces with interfaith groups throughout the world, your events will become richer and attract more people. Oh, by the way, if you get hungry or need a cup of coffee or something to eat during, between, or after the many sessions, any hour of the day or night, you can visit our virtual Interfaith Awareness Week cafeteria. Whether you want coffee, a snack, a full breakfast, lunch, or dinner, link your computer's browser to the site shown and grab an IAW food tray. Then go back and select what you want to eat and drink, copy them one at a time and paste them into your tray. Make sure you save the tray for a souvenir. All virtual food is sugar-free, calorie-free, gluten-free, kosher, and halal. So come back anytime during the week, 24/7. So now I'm going to turn the program over to the next presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Albert. We are excited to be participants of this annual Interfaith Awareness Week. Who are we? We are the Big Question Forum, one of the programs sponsored by the Interfaith Council of Rossmoor, a senior community in Walnut Creek, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are a population of about 10,000 residents and represent an assorted interfaith bouquet. Yes, a bouquet, for we have a representation of many faith traditions, many flowers, and we continue to bloom. The mission of our Interfaith Council is to honor differences, cultivate understanding, and to serve the human spirit. The Big Question Forum embodies this mission. We are now in our 6th year. A committee of 4 chooses several universal big questions and presents them to the Interfaith Council. The council then chooses one which they feel is most relevant for consideration from the perspective of a number of different spiritual faith paths. What has been our joy is that we can all meet under the umbrella of oneness. We are all spokes of one wheel, many flowers in one bouquet. We look for the golden threads which weave through all religions and paths. An example being the golden rule, but there are many commonalities among religions. Today, we have Sara Blackstock, our coordinator, moderator of the Big Question Forum. She will share with you how you can start the Big Question Forum in your church, temple, mosque, or community. We encourage you to experience the dynamics of bringing many faiths together to explore the answers to the big questions of life. Sara?
Thank you, Sunshine. Gloria Sunshine has been a member of our Big Questions Forum for 6 years, along with Ruth Ahern. Ruth, hello, raise your hand. And Channing Miller, who I think will be coming on soon. And I would like to just welcome a very, very special friend, Jane Benson. It's so good to see you, Jane. Jane had a stroke a couple of months ago, and boy, here she is, just raring to go. It's beautiful, beautiful to see you. Our enthusiasm for beginning the Big Questions Forum 6 years ago came from a desire to provide an arena for people who are explorers and adventurers of life's big questions, and to offer a space for these people to learn about and talk about what different religions and spiritual paths have to say about the big questions. And there's hundreds of them, of the big questions of life. We find it interesting to explore and adventure into the often rugged realms of the different ways of relating to the unknowns of existence through asking the big questions and finding answers from many different paths. We have 3 arenas to focus on in the next however many minutes we've got, 40 minutes or so. We will show you brief excerpts, that's a hard word to say, brief excerpts from 4 different speakers that we've had on the big questions. We will share an outline of how we developed the Big Questions Forum in case you are interested in doing so. We would like to also hear your experiences in creating dialogue between religious and spiritual paths and questions you might have about our forum. Before I go on, I would like to welcome Bettina Gray. Thank you, Bettina. Bettina has been involved in interfaith for, I don't know, Bettina, 50 years or so. You're the one that turned me on to interfaith years ago. And remember the Viking Brotherhood were coming and they wanted to be part of the Interfaith Council, the Viking Brotherhood. Anyway, it's so good to see you. So let's listen to some short excerpts. Clips is really easier to say, isn't it? Short clips from our big questions in order to get a feeling for some of our speakers. An important aspect of the big questions is to encourage dialogue amongst the attendees. And we will pause after each speaker to see if any of you have an answer to the big question to which the speaker was speaking. So, Will, you want to show the first speaker?
So where does the purpose of life come in all of this? The purpose of life, the purpose of any spiritual path, the purpose of seeking itself, the purpose why we are impelled to do all the things that we are impelled to do is to grow and expand our own identity, is to expand our consciousness so that from believing that we are this limited little self that constantly needs to think about and care for itself, we can expand further into a larger sense of identity, that we can know that I'm not just this person. This identity is only a delusion. I am pure spirit that pervades all of creation. Now, that's not a mere affirmation. To actually reach that state of realization, one has to truly expand their awareness. But we all do it in our own ways, through our own seeking. We do it by expanding our identity, not just with ourselves, but with our families, with our pets, with our friends, with the community that we belong to, with the state or country that we belong to. So we are all expanding that identity, but we are doing it in ways that draw us to seek greater happiness, to avoid.
Thank you. We'll hold for a minute and see if the big question there is what is the purpose of life? So if this was a question that was presented to you, what would be a very short answer that you would give to what is the purpose of life? A word, a phrase? Any of you have anything that occurs to you about the purpose of life? Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I'll refer back to one of my favorite authors on spiritual topics, Richard Bach. In his book Illusions, he says that the meaning of life is to discover your gift, or the purpose of life is to discover your gift. The meaning of life is in giving it. And I've always held that as a truth that I can latch onto. And over my life, I've discovered many different gifts, and that's been very helpful to me.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody? Oh yeah, anybody else? Oh yeah,
Yes.
please go ahead, Abigail.
I'm going to piggyback on what Joe said, but in that purpose, I think that we need to get our hearts straight. So a purpose would be to just love everyone, love our neighbor, love ourselves. And in doing so, forgiveness must come into that picture as well. We can't love without forgiveness. So that's a purpose too.
Thank
Joe,
you.
there was a question in the chat room asking who was it that said that quote again? And can you say it for us one more time?
Joe, who said that quote?
Richard Bach.
Richard Bach. It's in his book Illusions, and it's a quote from the Messiah's Handbook.
Ah, thank you. Okay, I think we could show the next clip. And the question is for this speaker, what is the relationship between science and religion?
big question. This is definitely a big question. And with this big question, I feel like there have been so many answers in front of us and so many things that we've been actively participating in for so long. But because of a lot of the direct and purposeful separation of science and religion, we tend to look at, in some ways, them in a very separate sense. So this question this year, what is the relationship between science and religion in today's world? I believe it's just as relevant as it has been in times past. One thing, when we're talking about critical thinking, Sara mentioned something in her introduction. I remember in my first critical thinking class many moons ago, as a freshman in college, we learned about capital T truth versus small t truths, and how there may be so many things that are small t truths for each and every one of us individually, and even collectively oftentimes, as well as certain things that are capital T truths for us that may not necessarily be for someone else. When we talk about science and think about science, a couple lenses I want to come from and come through today. So many different types of science. We have astronomy, we have geology, we have geology, chemistry, biology, neurology. So many different studies of science that have been combined in religion, some knowingly and some unknowingly. Some of the same, one thing I'd like to start with also by saying that a lot of the principles that are in so many different religions, they're the same principles, they just have different packaging. And that's one thing I love about interfaith work, is that we understand that the dichotomy and the trichotomy of what we all have in our different faith traditions, is that songwriter, Frankie Beverly, said that we're all both one and the same, we're one.
The question goes to you folks. If you were asked what is the relationship between science and religion, what would be one quick phrase that you might say?
I love that dichotomy and trichotomy. And for a while, in our Interfaith Council, we were talking about dialogue and polylog, and how even when we're just two people doing dialogue, because we know so many other people, that it's usually polylog. And so there's so many different parts of our lives that intersect, and it's really hard to separate those, that it's sometimes easier for us to think of the unity of all things.
Thank you, Will. Anybody else? Oh, please, go ahead, Joe.
I like to think of the difference between science and religion as simply asking the big questions in a different way. Science asks how, and religion asks why.
Yeah, excellent.
Beautiful.
That's
beautiful.
Clarification, yeah. Reverend Karen.
Yes, I'd like to kind of dovetail on what Joe says. I think the only difference between science and religion is the difference we think there is between science and religion.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Well, one of our past speakers, Dr. Nazir Ahmed, was a NASA scientist and a Muslim. And he, after helping, I think he helped on the moon landing as a scientist. And he said that once you see the pictures of outer space and you work on that program, you see that all is one, and you see it. So now that we'd like to show the third clip, and the question for this clip is, oh, there's Nazir. He's speaking to another question though. Is peace possible in today's world?
It's only its probability that's open to discussion. So let's start with the affirmation that peace is indeed possible. But what is peace? I'll highlight a perspective from my Islamic tradition, from a spiritual Sufi viewpoint. We start with a prayer that Muslims around the world recite several times a day. O God, thou art peace. From thee comes peace, and peace returns unto thee. This prayer defines the origin, the existence, and the ultimate destination of peace. Peace is like a priceless pearl encapsulated in a heavenly shell, which is the present.
Well, I'm sorry that got cut off too quickly there. So I would like to know what he had to say about that metaphor. Anyway, if this question was asked of you, what would you respond? Is peace possible in today's world? This has been our question all year long. Oh, thank you, Stephen. The reference that Joe gave us, Stephen said that he also wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. So does anybody have a response to how is peace possible today in today's world? Go ahead, Ruth.
May I just remind us that we asked, how is peace possible in today's world? Because we didn't want it to be an idle discussion about what's possible, but what would be needed to establish peace today.
Thank you for that reminder. That's quite a difference there. Yeah. Okay, if nobody else, oh yeah, Bettina, go ahead.
Well, I actually was one of the presenters on the topic.
You were, I know.
And if I remember, one of the things I said, and the more I think about it, the more I think it's true. On the how, what we need is communication skills, a deepening, a relearning, a modeling. I told Reverend Dr. Steve Albert and his wife that what they're doing this week is an example of the challenge we need for peace, which is modeling communication. And that's what this week is and has been. And we have been thrown into a completely new environment for communications with digital media. And observing communications over many decades, because I've been involved in radio interviewing and television interviewing and media most of my life, I believe that our ability to talk to each other has deteriorated considerably. Our models for how we discuss anything in the public square has deteriorated to where it is short soundbite slogans flung more or less like mud at each other. And events like this, the work that's being done around the world in interfaith dialogue, the patient modeling in the civic square of a way to communicate differences in a peaceful way, that is our how.
Yes, thank you so much. That is definitely the essence of what we need, and one of the purposes of the big questions. Will, I think we're ready for the last clip, and this is a question: is the purpose? What is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of life?
In Buddhist teaching, it's not very necessary to review everything we've done and say, oh, we should have done or we shouldn't have done. We start from now. You know, at every point is an enlightenment possibility. Every point is an opening. So what's the purpose of life? Well, it's to open every point. Now and now and now and now. Breathe in, breathe out. Open the heart. Will that lead to service and caring? Usually yes, because what we discover as we go forward is that that is what brings joy. That is what brings happiness. That is what heals our loneliness, heals our confusion, gives meaning to what we're doing.
Thank you. So we have already have had your response on what is the purpose of life. So I think we're going to move on. I have one more question that I would like to tell you a story about. The question was, who, what, where is God? This was a speaker some time ago. Here's the story. It was about a 10-year-old boy living in a small Midwestern community. His mother was afraid the boy did not show enough interest in religious matters. She expressed her concern to the town minister, and he said, "Send him over to see me tomorrow morning. I'll give him a good talking to." So the next morning, she told the boy that the minister wanted to see him. The boy walked over to the minister's house and knocked at the front door, which was open except for the screen. In a gruff voice, the minister said, "Come in." The boy entered almost shaking with fear. The minister pointed to a chair and said, "Sit down." The boy, now really shaking, walked slowly over to the chair and sat down in front of the standing minister, who leaned over with a finger pointed close to the boy's face, said loudly, "Who, what, where is God?" The boy jumped straight up, whirled, and shot out through the screen door, ran for home, never slowing down until he had reached home, gone through the front door, through the house, into the farthest closet, and slammed the door behind him. His older brother heard him run through the house and slam the closet door. The brother went to the closet and from the outside of the door said, "What in the world are you doing? What's going on?" The boy, crouched down in the dark of the closet, said in stuttering voice, "They can't find God and they think we had something to do with it."
Very funny, Sarah. There are many interpretations that come from the big questions. That's what makes it so meaningful and interesting. We would like to tell you something about how our committee has developed the big questions over the last 6 years. We would like to share with you our journey and the format so that you might use it to start your own big question forum. Now, Will, would you put on the screen our big question?
The outline.
The outline.
Areas of consideration.
So on your screen is a compressed outline, and we will take you through the steps as they evolve. So first of all, as you see, is a list of our 6 years of big questions.
Yeah.
Why is there suffering? Is there life or consciousness after death? Who, what, where is God? What is the relationship between science and religion? What is the purpose of life? And last but not least, how can there be peace in today's world? After we went and made this list of big questions, we went and considered the possible religious and spiritual paths that would be represented and answer these questions. And then steps evolved. Sarah, will you take that?
Yeah, steps which evolved as we established our big questions forum. Number one, we recruited a committee of at least 3. Number 2, I think we had a committee of 4, right? Number two, with this committee, we surveyed our area and we found we asked, is there an interfaith organization or a church, temple, or mosque that is interested in interfaith? If you do this and you find such a group, you present the idea of the Big Questions Forum and ask if they would sponsor a Big Questions Forum. If you find a group that is interfaith oriented. And here's 3 benefits that you can give to this group if you find such a group.
Like a church, like a
mosque, a temple, or even a local community.
like ours.
Like, yeah, to educate, number 1 benefit, to educate a wide audience on the similarities and differences between religion. Number 2, to create and encourage dialogue, like Bettina was talking about, between religions, increasing understanding and tolerance. Number 3, or C, to look for and find the golden threads that run through the higher truths of most religions. Next, after you find a sponsor of the Big Questions, the committee will choose 2 speakers from religious and spiritual paths. Why don't you go ahead and take it? Have you got that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. So we're
Okay.
on D.
Sure. And after we find the sponsor, the committee will choose 2 speakers to speak from different paths. For us, 1 session per month worked well, with a break and we took in January, August, November, and December. Other suggestions that worked for our group was have 1 person be consistently a coordinator of the committee and a moderator of each session. Introducing the speakers with a thank you to helpful people. That person can present up to 5 minutes of current, relevant, interesting, or philosophical statements about the value of being explorers and adventurers. Sara was our wonderful moderator and took this duty, this challenge into new heights, and I'll let her take it from there.
I would call it a passion because it is something that I find so interesting. So from the start, begin a list of people with emails to send out to them as a reminder for the upcoming session. Next, use the same question each month for a whole year. We found that to be really important. Next, keep notes on the main points that each speaker expresses to be used in summary at the end of the year. And we found several places to use this summary. One was in our local newsletter. And if there is a newsletter from a sponsoring group, ask to have an announcement of the upcoming date and presentation of the speakers. So now the question always is how to find and engage speakers. We're on number F now. So ask spiritual leaders of churches, mosques, temples, if they know of clergy or others who might be interested, especially in interfaith. Offer to meet with a leader and to give them more information and show your enthusiasm. Try to put together 2 speakers who represent different paths. For example, Methodist and Lutheran are more similar than are Hindu and Baha'i. So this difference creates sometimes a positive tension. It's a good thing. Work up an introductory presentation, which can be sent email and by phone to the several religious organizations your committee has chosen to be represented. So now to interface with the speakers beforehand, and this I found to be very important so that you kind of prepare the speakers for what they're going to be, how they're going to be doing their talk. Explain how the session works, how much time they have to speak, and encourage them to interface with the attendees in the dialogue sessions. They're not there just to speak. They're there also to interface. We asked the speakers to speak to the big question, to keep on topic. Some tended to get off topic by talking about how their particular sect or religion began and what the rituals were, and sometimes excess history regarding the founding members of the sect. Share the benefits to interfaith through their participation, and that more people will learn of their path. That's another one of the benefits that you can talk about. This session can last about 1.5 hours. The session of the big, you're still talking to the speakers about their expectations. You can tell them that the session can last about 1.5 hours with 15 or so minutes for dialogue. And each speaker has from 20 to 30 minutes to present their talk on the big question. For us, 1 session per month worked well with several breaks. And last but not least, how to create an archive and what to do with it. Number 1, record the program. And thanks to Will McGarvey, we have, I think, close to 6 years recorded, not with every session, but with a lot.
I think it's 3 years recorded by me that it's on our YouTube channel. And then you have, because you are in Rossmoor and Rossmoor TV was recording it. I don't know if they've been showing it on the Comcast channel, but I don't know if they have an online portal where you can find those recordings as well. But you've done a really good job with that.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Will, they are developing an online channel, and they did record several sessions. I have discs that go back at least 5 years. I've got CDs that go back at least 5 years. And this is another thing that we want to talk about, is how to create an archive and what to do with it. So put it on YouTube like Will did for us. You can ask a library, public church, mosque, or temple if they would accept it to further donate to interfaith understanding. So that is sort of our basic presentation to you. Now we would like to have you ask questions, make comments. What are you doing in your particular realm to increase interfaith dialogue? This is your time to do some sharing. Go ahead, Steve, Dr. Albert.
And I appreciate everything you've done. As I said before, we're going to steal your ideas and use them in San Diego. We are archiving, hopefully, every one of the 40 speakers' presentations during this week. And we'd appreciate any advice that you could give us to a better way to do it. Anyway, well, I can talk with Will at another time, but that's so essential, because you look at how many people have spoken, how many people have been on each program, and it's very small compared to the people who would want to be on the program. And to have an archive to go to would be just essential for bringing more and better knowledge to the world.
And what we have here in Rossmoor, we're very lucky to have the Channel 28, because they put on a weekly basis, they choose different programs to sponsor. And often they have taken and redone a big question forum presentation. And people are so happy because not everybody has made it to the exact time of the presentation. So we're very fortunate with that.
That's wonderful.
Stephen.
One other thing that I think is apparent is that without the technical support and the ability to not only record, but to participate in a Zoom room and all the rest of the features that Will McGarvey supplies locally to your group, in San Diego, you need that same thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to concur that Will's support and knowledge of how to run Zooms. I think he does a lot of the Zoom hosting. And also Will is the executive, let me see if I get this right, Will, executive director of the Contra Costa Interfaith Council. Is that right?
Yeah, but we use the acronym I4C, Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County, and with all those C's, we like to just go by I4C.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I4C, there's a good play on that too.
Yeah, so Will's interaction with us on the big questions, he's really been a mentor over the 6 years. So and anything else that, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Abigail.
Yes, I want to just share a little bit of what we do just in our board meetings for the Point Poway Interfaith team. Well, we started this year, we thought our meetings are just getting kind of dry. So this year we started a conversation after the meeting, not only just a conversation afterwards, but we're bringing in either people from our own membership or outside our membership to talk about their faith tradition as a guest speaker for the first 5 minutes. So, and then the conversation at the end is going into the virtues. And we've had a virtue every month. We've had like, let's say we've had creativity, kindness, humility, forgiveness, mindfulness, thankfulness, and joyfulness. Those two are coming up, but then we're inviting a pagan priestess to talk about Samhain in October. We're inviting a Buddhist to speak about his or her religion. We've had unification, Jewish, Christian, Sikh, Hindu. So they're each letting our whole group know more about their own faith, then go into a short business, and then we connect on our Zoom link, just discussing the virtues. So it's brought a real, because we're not meeting in person a lot, we've started, but not every month. It's brought us closer together, and we feel a lot more camaraderie when we have this a conversation every month about a virtue and what does it mean from your faith tradition and how are you using and practicing it in your life. So that's been, I think, a real benefit for our whole team. I just wanted to share with you.
That sounds like a really good idea. Sometimes I feel like our board meetings are board meetings.
No, and that's why we changed ours.
I know we need a little more, life, a little more substance. We do have a time at the beginning of the meeting where people can share their faith tradition. One person shares their faith tradition, and that's good. But once again, it's not that dialogue which gets people excited. And so I like the idea also of having the virtues of a theme. And so other people share, right? Not just one
Everybody,
person.
yeah. Once the meeting is done, then we, whoever, and usually it's one person does the breakout sessions, gets us into 2 or 3 people and say, okay, let's talk about, the virtue of mindfulness. What does that look like in your life? And we share for about 15 minutes. And if there's time, we do another roll around breakout with different people. It's just been really interesting we just get to know each other even a little bit better on a deeper level. So it's been really nice.
Yes, that's a really good idea. And that's the benefit of interfaith groups, of which there are many, sharing what they do. Stephen.
I like the phrase roll around breakout.
Roll around breakout.
You never know who you're going to roll in with.
I've never heard that phrase before.
We'll need to do a flash dance, right?
Bettina and Joe have their hands raised too.
Joe, go ahead.
Okay. I was one of the things we've done at the Multi-Faith Council is we did a 4-week session, 4-week program on the topic of religion versus science, and we broke it into a deep dive into that, and that was a pretty well received program. Of course, that was pre-COVID, and we were able to do sessions at the public library, and we had as many as 70 to 100 people attending those sessions. So I wanted to share that because you had the question about, religion and science earlier as one of your big questions. The other thing I wanted to share is that one of the things we've been doing at the Multi-Faith Council for quite a few years now. I know it's more than 10. We've had a men's group, and each month the members of the men's group, one member volunteers to host the men's group meeting, and we're only a group of 8 to maybe 16 people, so it's not a big unwieldy group. And most of the time it's about 10 or so, 10 to 12. And the host is responsible for bringing refreshments. That's what makes them the host. But the other thing the host is responsible for is selecting a topic for discussion. And I would say this falls into the category more of small questions rather than big questions, because it's not quite as deep as some of the big questions, but it's often more topical. And the men's group, then each person gets to share their thought. They've got a week or two before the event when they know the topic, and they have time, usually 5 minutes or so each, to present their thoughts on that particular topic. Now, the other interesting thing about the Multi-Faith Council, and is a little different than your big questions, none of these people come as authority figures. While they represent different faith groups, because it's a mixed group of folks, we're all essentially lay people. And so the answers to the questions are more from a personal perspective within the context of your chosen faith tradition, as opposed to an authoritative presentation about how my faith sees this. It's not so much that academic or theological kind of presentation as it is a more personal reflection. So it engages at least the one end of your presentation, the big questions group, more of the dialogue piece, but we have more dialogue. The whole evening is about the dialogue as opposed to the presentation.
But Joe, would you give an example of one of your small questions?
Well, let me see. Give me a minute. I'll come back to you on that. Let Bettina chat. I'll go check my notes from last month.
Without naming names or putting anybody on the spot, I would be curious, any of your oops moments or your situations that you had to self-correct, things that maybe you had somebody come and they thought it was their big opportunity to proselytize or to explain their religion in depth rather than answer the question. I'm just where were the problems and pitfalls that we could correct from?
Good question.
Let Sara say it.
Go ahead, Steve.
A number of years ago, we had a very long presentation, discussion. It went longer than we had expected. And at the very end, one of the religious people from a particular faith came up to us and said, I'd like to do a closing thought and prayer. And we said to him, thank you, but there really isn't time, maybe at the next presentation in another month or whatever. Well, we made a lot of enemies. There were people that said, you wouldn't let him give a prayer? you wouldn't let him be part of it. And I think that goes into the planning of any sessions that we do. You've got so much time to let somebody talk about the purpose of life for an hour when your presentation is an hour and a half. You can't do that. So I love the way that you put in, okay, you've got 10 minutes or 15 minutes to discuss it, and then we're opening up for 10 minutes, and then we're moving into this, and it's the next. I think that's brilliant in terms of getting the job done.
Right. And this is what we have, our evolved learning has come to, is the connection with the speakers is to outline our expectations so that it goes our way, so that they don't speak more than 20 or 30 minutes and leaving time to answer Bettina's question. Ruth, I'm wondering, does anything occur to you? I don't want to put you on the spot, or Sunshine. They're both members of our committee that have been problematic in our big questions. Anything occur?
What I think is amazing is that we really haven't had those issues. And I think because it's been well structured, it may have to do with the kind of an area in which we live. I don't know to what extent that has a part of it, but it hasn't been a big problem. We've had people who've gone on a bit too long, and Sara eventually says, okay, it's time for us to move on to the next question, and just very sweetly, and it's gone absolutely beautifully. I'm amazed that we haven't had those kinds of issues.
I just want to second what Ruth said, and again, also give credit to Sarah's handling of it, as well as that's where in the step of interfacing, I believe she was very clear with the speakers that we have only this much time and we will have to stop you, so just be aware. And they've all been wonderful. So we've been very fortunate. And in line with that, we have about 6 more minutes that we want to all.
Three.
He said 15.
And BZ, before Zoom, when you were meeting in a big hall in Rossmoor, you would be able to give reminders to folks at the individual tables to make sure that everyone had a chance to share, making sure that everyone's voices got heard. That was a good thing as well. I think what gets harder is when you're this is like an ongoing program of interfaith conversations, and making sure that everyone gets to be able to do the dialogue part is really important. But I think the genius is having 2 presenters so that you're not dealing with just one faith, but you're putting faiths in conversation and individuals from different faiths, because faith traditions don't meet each other. As Father Tom Bonacci says often, people meet each other.
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead. I just, in response to what Will said, and just one of the evolutions of our steps was that we also tried at one time 3 speakers. And what we came out after that is seeing that was just a little too much. We had to move it too fast, and then we reduced it. So it is an evolution, but that's why we're meeting here today. Hopefully we can be of help to you in the future.
Yes, and
Wonderful.
in the next few minutes that we have left, I just want to say that myself.
Joe has something.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
But that's all right. I want to get back to you about the small question. I went to my notes from July. The July topic was, can a person be spiritual without being religious, or does one require the other?
Oh, good.
That's a big question.
Well, it was prompted by something that a person had read, an article about spiritual versus religious, or something about people are identifying mostly as none, neither, you know. And he said, well, how is that possible? Because in his frame of mind, that was the question. How can you be spiritual without being religious, or vice versa? And so we had a nice discussion about that. And in terms of, I think it was Bettina who raised the question about people who want to present their point of view or something, or somebody else brought that topic up while I was running around. What we have found, we made a ground rule that nobody gets to proselytize. You're not here to convert somebody to your way of thinking. You're here presenting a thought, your presentation. And the only time we've had trouble with that is when we've had people with an evangelical sort of mindset,
Right.
where they, you know, they're invested in proselytizing. And so they brought their book. They wanted to, you know, tell us that that was the true authority right there. And of course, there were people that said no, and they didn't come back. So
Well, and we haven't had any of those people on our big questions, and I'm not quite sure why we haven't. Maybe we haven't gone after them.
Well, today you did hear the one evangelical,
Yeah, Dr. Van Hook.
Dr. Van
He
Hook,
was an
and he's just a low-key.
Well, he's a part of the Black Church. He's not really evangelical. Black Church, Kojic Christianity is more about liberation and liberation for African Americans. So I don't think he would call himself an evangelical.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think we'll ask that we stop, and thank you all for your participation. It's been, we've learned many things from you. Thank you. Until later.
Oh,
And
this
we
is
want,
wonderful.
Thank
if
you
you're
so
interested in
much.
receiving a full document about this, you can email the email address that's here, and Sarah will send it to you, including how they explicate the different topics that they put together, introducing the themes for folks as they're coming.
Thank you for that, Will.
Yes.
I forgot.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend
If you're staying for the next one, we're going to invite you to just go ahead and stay with us. We'll be starting in a few minutes, but I'm going to stop the recording. It's the same Zoom meeting. You don't have to go somewhere else to join this.
okay.
This is the same.
Yeah.
I'll be presenting next.
Thank
Okay.
you, Will.